Hear ye, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, family and friends, and dignitaries. We have assembled here today to pay tribute to Pastor Lewis S. White Sr. On this auspicious occasion, we celebrate a man called by God to preach and teach the gospel, leading people to Christ and everlasting life. God has honored his faithfulness with long life, surpassing the promise of 70 and 10, more than 9 decades on earth and over 6 decades in ministry. Don't leave this earth without learning something from Pastor White. Is not wisdom found among the aged? Does not long life bring understanding? Taken from Job 12 and 12. Pastor White is multidimensional in character and personality, a family man, humanitarian, and preacher of the gospel. He hails from the great state of Mississippi. Born and raised in Peoria, Mississippi, Lewis S. White was introduced to the world. The man that we know as Pastor White is from a family of 11 brothers and sisters. A very proud native of Mississippi, he matriculated at the Alcorn University. In 1950, Pastor White, along with his lovely wife, Jessie B., and family, made their way to Los Angeles. Pastor White took on a job as a door-to-door salesman for Fuller Products, which afforded him the opportunity to meet hundreds of people doing his job and sharing Christ at the same time. The White family attended Second Baptist Church, where Pastor White was ordained to the ministry by his then pastor, Dr. J. Raymond Henderson. The family later joined the New Light Missionary Baptist Church with Pastor H. G. Adams. The next and final stop was Greater New Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church. Pastor White's character and Christian service is par excellence. Everywhere he serves, he displays God's love and compassion. Here are 3 areas I chose to highlight. Number 1, family. Husband to the late Jessie B. White. Father of 5 children. Grandfather of 7 grandchildren. Brother to 11 siblings. A great uncle and favorite cousin. He is a provider. Number 2, humanitarian. He is a caregiver to the sick and shut in. He is a friend to all, a good neighbor, and he's community conscious. An entrepreneur, because he was a salesman. A builder, proud builder and leader of the Greater New Jerusalem Building Project. Philanthropist in his own right, supporting scholarship, missions, and homelessness efforts. He is a leader. The first pastor of the Greater New Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church, and he held this title for 55 years. Moderator, former moderator of the Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Association. Teacher, he is a teacher of the Word of God. Counselor, he shares words of wisdom and he is compassionate to others. Role model, he is a living legend. A brief timeline for Greater New Jerusalem. In 1962, Greater New Jerusalem was organized. Its first location was at 723 West Vernon Avenue. 1966, the first property was purchased at 1719 West 50th Street. Again in 1966, the first baptism was recorded. Gerald R. Johnson was the candidate. In 1967, the first wedding ceremony was recorded. Marion Morgan was the bride. In 1970, the first deacon was ordained. Deacon Lewis C. Hall. In 1975, Reverend White was honored with the surprise, "This is Your Life." In 1980, Reverend White led us to the Progressive National Baptist Convention in membership as our Greater New Jerusalem joined the convention. In the 1980s, we launched the Building Fund campaign. 1983, our new edifice was completed and the dedication service took place. 1985, we hosted the Progressive Baptist State Convention of California. 1986, we started a feeding program to feed those in need. 1988, Pastor White served as the recording secretary for the Progressive Baptist State Convention. In the 1990s, we started the Pauline Owens Scholarship Fund. In 1994, Pastor White served as the moderator of the Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Association. And later, he was awarded Pastor of the Year award for the Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Association. In 2012, we celebrated the 50th church anniversary and homecoming for Greater New Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church. And to sum it up, in the year 2016, Pastor White announced his retirement. In 2017, we celebrate Pastor Emeritus Lewis S. White Sr. The Greater New Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church was organized in 1962 and later chose Reverend Lewis S. White for our pastor. So the White family became a part of G&J at its first location at 723 West Vernon Avenue. In 1966, the church acquired its first property at 1719 West 50th Street and later constructed a new church edifice adjacent to the old church, now the parking lot. Today, our home is 4927 Southwestern Avenue. Together, pastor and people started on a journey lasting 55 years. Joining Pastor White in ministry was Reverend Matthew Harris, the assistant pastor. The church was predominantly comprised of families who had migrated to Los Angeles from many southern states. The bonds became very strong because the members were connected by kinship and relationship. Take a look at some of the historical firsts at G&J. This celebration would not be complete without reflecting on Pastor's favorite story, or at least one of his favorite stories. All of the members, they've heard this several times, and it's about the first baptism he performed as pastor. Darrell R. Johnson was the young lad who at age 3 told Pastor White repeatedly Sunday after Sunday, "I want to be a Christian." We did not have a baptizing pool at our church, but would use New Life Missionary Baptist Church to conduct baptisms. So many of us here today, young and old, were baptized, taught, and mentored by Pastor White. Our membership was a large extended family, and we shared so much together from week to week. One of the first deacons to be ordained by Pastor White was Deacon Lewis Hall, who was soon called to preach. He, along with Reverend David Duncan, were both ordained as ministers for G&J. With the growing ministerial staff, Pastor White wanted to share the pulpit and make room for these young ministers to preach. He later started the Brotherhood Preaching Service. This service was held every fourth Saturday night. We were blessed to hear the Word of God from young voices throughout the city of Los Angeles, creating a platform for ministry. Pastor White had now started a new family of preachers, and as a good father would do, he trained his ministers for service, and many were later called to various churches and started pastoring. With his team of ministers right by his side, Pastor White heard the voice of God and led the church in a massive building fund drive for the purpose of constructing a new church. We loved our little church, and we learned how to transform it for multiple purposes for worship, concerts, plays, and even a dining room for fellowship dinners. There were sliding doors in the pastor's office that we would open to add extra seating when overcrowded, and even a Sunday school classroom that could be converted. Now that I think about it, that same room was also a nursery of sorts. We had many great firsts at G&J. In the beginning, we started with just one choir, and that choir was called the Senior Choir. And at that time, I was the only little kid singing in the senior choir. But as the babies grew up, we started a junior choir and later a youth choir. There was also one senior usher board, so the same junior choir members were also junior ushers. We were young children and had to be obedient, so we were fully involved in church, Sunday school, youth mission, and BTU. Remember that? Some of the special fundraising events we had were the Slaptown Convention, White House Tea, States Rally, March of Dimes, and of course, We all remember those heaven and hell parties. Because of these events, we raised lots and lots of money. Oh, and let's not forget the delicious barbecue dinners and the Saturday morning breakfast sales. Pastor White is well known for his humility and servant nature. But in 1975, he was honored with a This Is Your Life service. This service was given as a surprise to recognize Pastor White for his leadership. We worked very hard to pull the service off without Pastor knowing what was going on. The service was held at Christ the King Baptist Church, and the special guests were his mother and sister all the way from Mississippi. This was a great surprise, and he was brought to tears at the celebration. In later years, Pastor White was recognized as Pastor of the Year by the Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Association. Once again, Pastor White was recognized for his leadership in dedicated service. The MMBA holds their annual scholarship luncheon to recognize graduating high school seniors. At the luncheon, a queen is crowned each year, and G&J has the record for bringing the crown home for many years. Pastor White is credited here for his long-standing support of this endeavor and helping young people to further their education. G&J has always been known for its generosity and caring nature for people in need. Recognizing the need of families less fortunate than others, we donated food items and prepared Thanksgiving and Christmas baskets to be given away each year. After sharing with others, the church also prepared bags of fruit and candy for the members, which was a Southern tradition, I was told. Pastor White would give exemplary leadership to these efforts by being the first person to donate the necessary food items. He never asked the members to do anything without setting the example and giving first. And that thou